Here comes a good one down the draw.
Come down to the last part of the hunt, he was a shooter.
That's a good buck.
When the prairie winds blow in November, hunter and host Mark Kayser knows it's time to head back to old familiar hunting grounds and old friends in South Dakota. The rut is on, and there's lots of big mature bucks to look over. As Kayser stalks through the tall grasses and over the hills, it's the renewal of a deep-rooted tradition on this episode of Winchester Whitetail Revolution. Winchester's Whitetail Revolution is brought to you by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Otis Technology, the most advanced gun care system in the world. Code Blue, perfecting the science of hunting. Winchester Repeating Arms, the guns that work. Bushnell Optics, magnify life. This is Whitetail Guide Dave Tatum of Isabel, South Dakota, population 239. And for host Mark Kayser, this is a chance to hunt with a good friend. The bucks are following the does and the conditions look right for a terrific hunt. They'll walk the edges of the draws, glass the wide horizons, and try different techniques, some of them very different. All they need is the time to find that right buck over that next rise. 'When hunters think of South Dakota, what usually comes to mind is rich farmland and cackling pheasants. But this hunt's in a part of the state that's drained and shaped by the tributaries of the Missouri River. There are buttes and gullies, and broad, treeless expanses that combine to make ideal habitat for white-tailed deer.
It was like the sound of music. The hills came alive. There were deer coming out of pockets of timber everywhere. How big do you think that deer is?
Truthfully, I think he'd be like 42, 43. You know, sticker, about that long. He's a 140-inch 4-point with a 2.5, 3-inch sticker. He's gonna be in 142, 143.
He's got good mass. Man, it's tough to shoot a buck like that the first night when we're seeing such good rutting activity.
I seen, truthfully, I think 6 different bucks that caliber last weekend.
Really?
Yeah, that caliber and better.
Dave's got a bug in my ear, and he kept saying, man, that's a good deer. He's been seeing a few better. Whew, I don't know if I'd take that deer. I'm not gonna lay the blame on Dave. I just decided right there, we better hunt a little more. We had the days to work the hunt out. We had days to cover the country, and even after Dave left, if I hadn't had a deer, I still had time to keep looking.
You know, we're located here in northwestern South Dakota. It's kind of the prairie of the country. I mean, very little timber. It's a lot of big, wide open country. South Dakota is probably one of the best kept secrets in the world. You know, a lot of people talk about the big deer they kill and the big deer they have and the big deer they see. And truthfully, I don't know if there's any place I've ever found any better per hunter for the man hours spent to find a trophy whitetail than in South Dakota.
There's big whitetails here. The country is just the perfect country that I so much enjoy to hunt. Whenever I get the opportunity to go hunting with Dave Tatum, I take it. Dave is the guy to find deer when you know other deer are around.
I think what we'll do here, Mark, is deer, this is kind of a nice bedding area. They come back in off the flats. I think we'll set up right here and we'll try to call, see if we can rattle and grunt a buck out of these brushy drainages here.
They're just beautiful drainages. We're in pre-rut. Hardly any does should be in heat, so the bucks ought to be just fired up.
Just starting to happen, you know what I mean? Second week of November, it should be as good as it's going to get.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
Let's give her a try.
Okay.
Well, should we pick up and go over the hill to the north? We'll try that. There's another big brushy bowl over there on the west end of that alfalfa field. We'll try that. I mean, there was a lot of buck sign over in there with rubs and stuff. You know, maybe we can catch some bucks coming back off the alfalfa with the does to the bedding area.
We need to try something, because right now we don't see any deer, Dave. I'm a little disappointed in you.
Thank you, Mark.
I had some high hopes that we were not only going to get into some big buck opportunities, but just flat out have a good time hunting together.
That's a nice buck.
We'll get back to Kayser's South Dakota adventure, but first, taking the buck of a lifetime is a mind game as much as anything else. When a hunter gets his shot at that one and only whitetail, he has to have the right mental attitude for the job. That means being able to stay cool under pressure, even when things go wrong. Here's Mike Hanbeck with a prime example.
One November morning up in Ontario, a giant buck came in and hit a scrape 30 yards in front of Shane Good's tree stand. He touched off an arrow, it sailed right over the deer's back. Silently, Shane grabbed another arrow, knocked it, and drew. The confused buck closed the gap even further, and Shane's second shot was spot on. The buck ran less than 30 yards and fell. The stunning animal, perfect 10, 23-inch inside spread, 26-inch beam, grossed 170 and netted 165 and 3/8. Shane told me how lucky he was to get a second shot. Yes, but he made that luck. Lesson learned. If you miss a deer, keep your wits and quickly knock another arrow, or reload your gun. You'll be shaking like a leaf, man, but do your best. Every once in a blue moon, you'll get a second shot at a monster, just like Shane did. For more great big buck action, check us out on the web at versuscountry.com.
In Isabel, South Dakota, there are undoubtedly more whitetail around the town than there are people living in it. And those whitetail are definitely on the move. The rut's in full swing with every buck chasing every doe, or at least looking for where the does have gotten to. The signs are everywhere, and so Kayser and Tatum have to try to be everywhere too. They only have 2 days to cover ground together before Tatum has to go, so when they're not still hunting or stalking, they're trying every rut hunting trick they know, from grunting and calling to antler rattling.
Back in South Dakota. There's no question about it. It's one of my favorite places to hunt. Heck, I grew up here. Big grasslands and just beautiful ribbons and strips of creeks running back and forth across the prairie. The strategy on this hunt was to spot and stalk, but we were going to overlook some of the calling opportunities, and if we found the right spot, and watch some narrow funnels on these creek bottoms to see if we could catch one of these big bucks cruising through. Dave moves out across the prairie and covers the country as well as anyone I know. And that's what we needed to do, especially on the first couple days of the hunt, because Dave had some prior commitments with some other hunting, and he only had 2 days to show me the property, and it was time to cut me loose.
Oh, there's one there, Mark. Where? In that brush patch. Laying right there at the bottom of the third brush patch. You see the ears moving?
Yeah, I see it. God, that was a good spot, man.
They're about 210 yards. I can see two of them in that right bush. I'll give them a little bit of a rattle. I can't believe that there ain't a buck with them. And
Boy, she's just stone-faced looking at us.
I'm gonna step off the side. Act like it. Let's see if I can look like a buck.
Okay, stay left. Don't want to fall on. You weren't real convincing.
There's not a lot of camouflage deer around here.
There's not a lot with a deer with a beard like yours either. How many does have we seen now?
Every little pocket we've looked in, there's been deer in.
Been deer in it, so one of these, there's going to be a buck.
One of these, there's going to be a bubba.
This heat isn't helping either.
No.
It's 60 degrees.
60 degrees, the middle of November.
Okay, down the creek we go. Pocket after pocket, deer after deer. We looked and looked and looked all day long. We never did see a shooter that day. So at sunset, walked away with no regrets, got ready to hunt the next day.
On the hunt for whitetail in northwestern South Dakota, host Mark Kayser and guide Dave Tatum have tried rattling and grunting to draw in rutting bucks. But like on so many hunts, the most effective technique seems to be just plain glassing.
Mark, here comes a good one down the draw. Coming from the west over there.
Oh yeah, I got him.
Oh, there's a mule doe laying right there too. That's a nice buck.
Where do you think he'll go? He's just a big 4-point, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's got really good brows.
Got really good brow tine. Is he broke on the left side?
He is there. He turned his head. See that?
He's a 150-inch frame deer if he ain't broke.
Oh yeah, he's walking right in front of us. You're giving me too many decisions here.
That's a good buck.
Right in front of us, coming down the draw, is a buck that right away I said, he's a shooter. Whew. He looked beautiful. Heavy, big brow tines, nice points coming right at us, not overly wide, but just nice and heavy. He turned sideways. He's just a clean 4x4 and he's almost got his G3 on the one side, broke clean off. He was up maybe buck anyway, and then with the point broke off, and day 2 again, I just decided it was not time to pull the trigger.
Oh, that's a nice deer.
It's tough to let a good one like that walk. Let's follow him down that draw. There might be something else. He probably knows where he's going. So.
I'm sure he's got a better schnozzle than we do. He's got an idea.
Don't you see this time of year, those bucks, they'll come in these side draws?
Yeah. You know, a deal like this here, excellent little place for him to bed.
Yeah.
You know,
That's what's...
Look at there, one bedded there.
Bed right there. A lot of people overlook this type of stuff. You know, they think, oh, that's just a little washout. But in the prairie, when you're hunting big open country, that's a hell of a hidey hole for a buck.
It's a great spot, you know, and I've kind of always, I don't know if you want to call it roll the dice or whatever, but I hunt the unobvious spots more than the big obvious spots,
that,
you know?
That comes into play now, especially as more does come into heat. You need to look in these overlooked, out-of-the-way spots, because that's where big bucks...
That's where a guy's going to find a bruiser.
Him and the doe are going to move off to get away from the crowd.
Yeah.
That second day, I knew it was going to be a tough ending. Not only did we not get on another shooter buck, but it was time for Dave to take off. So, said goodbye. The next day, I was on my own. Just gotta take our time now so we don't spook him or a doe. Come down to the last part of the hunt, he was a shooter. It's a good buck.
Winchester's Whitetail Revolution is brought to you by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Otis Technology, the most advanced gun care system in the world. Code Blue, perfecting the science of hunting. Winchester repeating arms, the guns that work. Bushnell Optics, magnify life. Legal shooting hours are put in place to avoid hunting accidents and protect deer populations. But when deer only move after hours, should hunters get a break?
I ran into two, not one, two different instances where I was hunting in states and other areas, i.e. tribal lands, where we had to quit at sunset. What's up with that?
You know, they are what they are. They're put into place so people aren't out there taking pot shots and shooting at things they can't see really well.
And that's right when those mature bucks are beginning to move. And one of those hunts was in a late season hunt, and I know darn well that those big bucks had no notion of moving until the last 4 or 5 minutes shooting light in a real setting, which would have been a half hour after.
For him to rant and rave about it because he couldn't get an opportunity at a monster buck he claims is silly. I mean, these laws are there for safety. When you go to a state, that's what you get.
They think that you and I are not smart enough, I guess, to know the difference between a deer and a hunter out there.
Big deer move at night. Does that mean if you're not going to be able to hunt him at 7:30 in the last half hour, that you're going to go out there at 11 or 12? Of course not.
Let's stop this nonsense and let us hunt the last half hour of daylight, the half hour from sunset to dusk, because that's when most of those big bucks are moving.
What's your stand? Log on at www.versuscountry.com and tell us where you stand. It's down to the last day, and Mark Kayser has had to part company with friend Dave Tatum. But Tatum has left Kayser with all he needs to know about this South Dakota hunting area to find a good deer.
Right there, right there. There's a buck, he's pushing that doe. Doing a fawn. Look at that. Here they go. They're going to go into that draw. 1, 2. 2 draws over by that little knob. He dropped in right by that knob. That's almost a mile away. Oh, he's rutting. I better move. But he's right out in front of us here somewhere. Down in that little valley. Just gotta take our time now so we don't spook him or a doe. He's gotta be in this draw. I've been watching this draw and he hasn't come out. And there's no way for him to get out. But there's a lot of grass down in the bottom. Do a little rattling and should just come out and look. Hopefully he'll just come out and look. There he goes. Here we go. He went right down. Looked like for a second he was gonna get up, but that shot was solid. He rolled down that hill. He's behind that butte, but I know the shot was solid. Oh, that was a good buck. As I walked over to that buck, I was feeling pretty darn good, but there was just a little bit of sadness. I would have appreciated having Dave along with me. I wish he wouldn't have had to leave. Man, he looks like a big-bodied old deer. I bet he's a 4 or 5-year-old deer. These are these grassy pockets I was talking about where he was bedded. Look at this right here. Any of these beds could have been him. He come right out of here. But look at how tall it is. You just can't see him in here. There's little dugouts. Creek bank is here. Perfect place for an old buck to hide. Look at the body on him. Whew. That is a big, old, mature whitetail. Look at that Roman nose on him. heavy horned, and just a massive, massive body on him. Oh. Gosh. I can guarantee you there isn't going to be a year until they put me in the old folks' home that I'm not going to be back in this state hunting whitetails.